This is the memo for the second revision test. So once again, you're going to go through it as if you're a teacher. So you're going to tick where there was right and give a cross where there was a wrong answer and put in a correction. And then you're going to add up the marks for each section. So let's start with the dictionary work. So this was a new word. I took it from Silver Sword, melancholy. So how a dictionary definition works, just a reminder, is that it gives you a part of speech, it gives you a definition, which is this, and it gives you the word in a sentence. So this could be a noun, meaning a feeling of sadness. So we know that's an abstract noun, it's a feeling. Or it can be an adjective to describe the noun. She had a melancholy look. And then it tells us its origin. A fancy word for origin is etymology, it sometimes says. That means where it comes from. So let's go through the questions. So it could be a noun. If you said abstract noun, even better. And an adjective, so that's 2 ticks. And then the origin is Middle English via Latin from Greek. If you just said Greek, that would be acceptable. That's 1 mark. And then an antonym means an opposite. Synonym means the same. Antonym means opposite. So, and it says an antonym, so you only give 1, and that's 1 mark. So now what you're going to do is you're going to look, the total is out of 4, and where it's easy to see, you're going to give yourself a 4 or whatever you got, circle it, so it's easy to go back and count. So there's a few things to remember with subject-verb agreement. The first is that words like run, jump are all verbs, but you have to remember our little verbs. Are, is, will, would, do, can, were. People often forget that these are verbs, so it's very important to remember these. So when you're doing subject-verb agreement, you need to look for your verb and figure out your subject. So the first thing you always do with this is you find your verb, and then your subject is every single thing before the verb in a simple sentence. So it'll have a subject and a verb. So here, the woman at the shop is our subject. Now, to check what verb you need, do you need the verb for one or for many? What you do is you look at your subject and you say, is there one or is there many? So here, women means there's many. We don't know how many, just that it's plural. So you could change it to they. If it said woman, like one, then you could change it to it. Even if the sentence doesn't fully make sense, then you could put it in place. So if it was they, because there's many, so we can put in place of this, they is tired. No, they are tired. So we know that this is our correct one. If it had said woman with an A, we would have said it are tired. No, it is tired. So that's a little tip. You look for the verb, you highlight everything before you look, is there one? Is there many? Then you change. If there's many, you put in your head, you say they. And if there's one, you put in your head it. And you see which verb fits, even if the sentence doesn't fully make sense with those. It's just a little replacement to make to check. So let's go through what these are. Bill, we could change him for it. So there we would have drives. Run, because there's many, they run. Looks are. Several of the sheep we could replace with they are. Each of the girls observes. Most of the seats were taken because we could replace that with they. Each of the girls, they. You couldn't, because there's many. Then this next section. Okay, the next question. I hope you noticed that it said highlight 3 verbs, underline 3 subjects. If you did more than 3, you're going to have to take off marks. So for verbs, these are all the choices. You could have said have, was, or was asleep, you could have said. Began running, placed, wakened, opened. Okay, Then for the subjects that you underlined, you could have said the lion and the mouse, could have been, or the lion, the king of the jungle, everything before the verb, so it had to all be underlined. Everything before the verb, everything, that's the here and over a bit. Okay, here, everything before the verb, just this, and here. So give yourself a tick for the first 3 that you did, and then if you've done more than 3 of either, then I want you to minus 1 mark. If you've done more than 3 highlights, and I want you to minus 1 mark if you've done. So just say you got 6 out of 6, then you would minus 4, that would be 4 out of 6. So now you're going to record your marks. So that was 6, and that was 4. So you're going to, out of the 12, you're going to do a 10, and you're going to circle it, so it's very easy to count when you add up your total marks. Let's look at nouns. So these are straightforward. You can see it's out of 4, so obviously there's 4. Melancholy, hunger, wisdom, truth, these are the only ones that can be things. The rest of these, chocolatey, knowledgeable, brave, they are adjectives, and hat and carriage are nouns. So 4 ticks for all the right ones, and then for every extra one, so if there's 5 or more, so just say you also highlighted that and that, then you're going to minus 2, so you're going to get 2 out of 4. Just say you got some of them wrong and some right, but you only ticked 4, then that's okay. Just give ticks for the ones that you got right. So you would just say you had highlighted melancholy, hunger, carriage, and knowledgeable, then you would mark it like this. 1, 2, and so you would get 2 still. Okay, then these all need to describe a noun to make it an adjective. So you could just put a noun in your mind, boy or whatever. How are you going to describe the love boy? Lovely, peaceful, hopeful. So that's how you do those. Okay, then let's look at these. So again here, I hope you read this question very carefully. 2 common nouns, 3 proper nouns, and 3 abstract nouns. The one you had to underline, circle, or highlight. So you're going to mark your first 3 underlines to see if they're right. 1, 2, 3, whatever they were. If you have any more underlines, you ignore them. You only mark the first 3. And then the 3 proper nouns. So there's a proper noun, there's a proper noun, there's a proper noun. There you go, the first 3. You can go look, there's more. For some reason my squares disappeared from here. All of these names of places, names of people. You shouldn't have New York twice, or Tiny twice. So the name of the primary school 116. March, I think those are all of them. So you're going to mark your first 3. 1, 2, 3. Ignore everything afterwards. So anything else that was circled. So just say you had circled this and this. Tough luck. You mark your first 3. So it would be 1, 2, 3. Ignore all the circles afterwards. And the same with highlights. So the 3 that I saw were fear, freedom, and pride. You might have had a different one. So now you're going to count your ticks. So you would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many you got, 6. And then if you put in any more than 2 of these, minus 1. If you put any more of 3 of these, minus 1. If you put any more than 3 of these, minus 1. So just say you got 6. You're going to minus those, it's 3. Then you need to divide it by 2. That's what that times a half means. So that means my total here is 1.5 for this section. So now remember, you add them all up together. So that is however many you got out of 15. You add it up. So just say you got 2, 3, and 1.5. Then you're going to add it up. 3, 4, 5, 6.5, and circle it to see. Don't count backwards how many you got wrong, tick how many you got right. Then prepositions. So you might have noticed that there was a mistake here and that I'd filled that twice. You can just cross out the one and go down and get some ticks. So you can just check these, give yourself your ticks: about, by. I wonder if that could be at. You could, I guess, have at for that one. In, at, on. Those are half each. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. This makes 1 mark. 5. So you give yourself a mark out of 5 and you circle it so it's easy to go back and count. Now, direct and indirect speech is a section people find hard. So I want you to check very carefully your answers. So just a reminder of what you look for in direct and indirect speech. You look for verbs. You look for adverbs of time and place, and you look, are there any pronouns like he, she, they? Those will always change. You always start with whoever said. So you would say Tandy said, then you put in your that. This will change to past tense. Had. This will change to past tense. Then that day. So now let's check the answers. I want you to mark how I mark with ticks, and then you'll count the marks. So for that, if you said he instead of Michael, that's fine, but no mark. Had that day, that's 3. Mangi said that. He would or should, you could have said, explore the wilderness, and I left out the next day. So you get a little bonus mark for that. If you got it, you could get 4 instead of 3. Okay, then this one, grandma asked me, or you could have put in some sort of pronoun there, but if I or she or he had seen her glasses. So that's 5. Let's go on. Caitlin said that she was hungry that day. Again, a tick for that. That becomes I or they. We don't know who she's speaking to. And must, because it's an instruction. Drive carefully. There shouldn't be a 1 there. So that was 3. Then changing to direct speech. So indirect and reported mean the same thing. And direct is the opposite. It's the person speaking directly in conversation. So again, watch carefully so you can do your ticks. So you're going to look for pronouns, verbs, adverbs of time or place or manner, and who's speaking. So you want to put in your inverted commas. That's going to be a tick, but you only get the mark if you've also done the inverted commas on the other side. You had to have closed it. There you go, that's your other half. But if you only did one, you only put at the beginning or the end, you can't get any marks for inverted commas. So the pronoun I gets a tick. Am changes to present tense. You, because us changes to you. Tomorrow is the next day. Last one. Inverted commas, you can get a tick if you put both of them in on either side. Then your pronoun, so she changes to I, was changes to present tense. Am hungry, so that's, and then this has to be a comma. So there's your marks, so that would be a tick. So you would count your ticks, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then what you do is you add up all your numbers, so you get a number out of 28. So just say you got 20 ticks, that would be 20 out of 28, and then you divide it by 2. So that means you got 10 out of 14. That's your circled one for this section. It's very important, otherwise your mark's going to be much higher than it should be. Now, idioms and proverbs. These, if you don't get 100% for your definitions, There's a problem because they were in the test before. So the idiom is a saying which doesn't make sense literally, but has a meaning which is understood because of popular use. You must learn that definition or your own definition. It's a saying which doesn't have literal meaning, which means as cool as a cucumber, we don't know why that saying means that you chilled out. So it doesn't mean literally you are a cucumber, but it has a meaning that we all understood because everyone uses it all the time. And then a proverb is a short, well-known, it's also a saying, but the proverb tells a truth, it gives advice, it teaches a lesson, something like that. This is a famous proverb, don't count your chickens before they hatch, means don't make plans until something's happily happens. So when you say, I'm going to buy this iPhone, but you haven't even sold all the things you need to make money for it. It's the same as saying, I'm going to get a brilliant mark for the test because I learned. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. So it's like, don't count. It would literally mean if you have all the eggs in your chicken hatch, and so the chicken lays 10 eggs, and you say, oh, I'm going to have 10 chickens, but then only 5 of them hatch because the others weren't fertilized properly or whatever happens with eggs. So that's where the saying comes from. It's like, oh, but you only had 5 chickens. Don't count them until they're actually chickens. So that's the literal meaning, but the figurative meaning means don't count on things until they actually happen. You could have had that in different words as long as you had the same meaning. Raining cats and dogs is an idiom because we don't learn a lesson from it. These ones were the idioms. So you see it says 6, so there's probably 6 things that you'd notice here. Okay, a couch tomato, it's a couch potato. So you can underline the idioms, check you got 3 right, check you got the proverbs right, so give yourself a mark. And then you're going to go give yourself a total mark out of 10. So just say for this section, your total mark was 8. You'll say whatever it is, and you'll circle it so you can go back and count it. Similes and metaphors, I shouldn't even have to go over. It's exactly the same. Comparison between 2 things. Metaphor. Simile is a comparison using like or as. Has to have those comparisons. Those are straight from the test before. I hope you got full marks for that. There you go. You can check your similes. You can pause if you need to. Then let's go have a look at the poem below. So this poem has a very nice rhythm with all the rhymes and all the assonance. My tonsils are as big as rocks is an example of a simile. And her tonsils are being compared to big rocks. And the effect is that it tells us how big her tonsils is and how she's feeling. So this is important, especially if you got these all right. Well done. But remember, very often a question won't ask these as 3. So it'll say, quote an example of a simile and explain its effectiveness. Then you have to give all these 3 steps whenever you're analyzing a simile or a metaphor. You quote it. And by the way, if you didn't put this in quote marks, you can only get half a mark. You had to have those quotation marks over there. Very important. And then you always say in a metaphor, simile, this is being compared to this. And finally, why? Why they tell her? Why is she saying my tonsils are as big as rocks? To make everyone feel sorry for her because she's so very sick. Then you're going to count that up, give yourself a mark out of 8, circle it so it's easy to come back to and count. If you didn't get full marks for personification, there's a problem. You should know it by now from the test before. Human quality is to a non-human. You need to learn these definitions by heart if you don't know them. Your own example has to have a non-human, animal or inanimate atom, being given a human quality. Table Mountain smiled down at me. My pencil case shouted at me when it fell to the floor. Something like that. And then an example of personification in the poem below is the crocodile with a cunning smile. If something's cunning, it means sneaky. So the crocodile is being given the human quality of smiling in a sneaky way. So when a question gives you 2 marks and it says, give an example of how it's personified and why it's personification, then you have to say, it's given the human quality, And wow, what does it tell us? That the crocodile is sneaky, that it looks like it's about to attack. It tells us something about the crocodile. So those are the two steps. Just like metaphor has steps, personification has steps. This required you to highlight an example of alliteration. So you're going to look wherever there's repetition. There was lots of b's in this one. Bear, bear, big, mouth, or k, s, s. Those are the only things you can highlight. It says an example, so only mark the first one. Just say the B's. And if there's others that are exampled, which are different, then you minus a mark. Well, that's a bit cruel because it's only for one mark. So you don't have to in this case, but usually you would, because if it asks for one, you give one. If you highlighted a vowel sound or I of Isabel, that doesn't really count. That's not a mark. So just say you highlighted these I's and the B's. Tough luck. Only the first one gets marked, which is wrong. Then you'd get naught. Then if you got this one wrong, there's a big problem because you should be learning your definitions off by heart. So the key thing is that you need to have the word repetition whenever you're talking about alliteration or assonance. And you need to know alliteration is a vowel sound, a consonant sound, so B, C, D, F, all the letters of the alphabet other than the vowels, which are A, E, I, O, U, and it has to have the word sound in. So you have to have all those things to get that answer right, and I really hope you got it right. I'll be disappointed if you didn't. Then you're going to check your punctuation. Now, spelling first. I hope everyone rushed through this in the last question, the last test, and got a stupid waste of marks. Circle the errors and write the correct word. Now this really helps you, because just say you saw that environmental was spelled wrong, so you circle it, but then when you correct it, you still spell it wrong. You spell it with 2 L's or something. You can still get a mark. So 1 mark for circling, 1 mark for correct spelling. For each of them, so 1 mark for circling, 1 mark for correct spelling, and that's how you can get 14, because there's 7 mistakes. So just say you circled some random words in there, then you're only going to mark your first 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. So even if you circled the rest, you're going to stop after 7. Instead of minusing marks, that's how you're going to do it for this one. Then the words in a sentence. So you know how to do these. You need to show you know what the word means in a full sentence with punctuation. If you gave a definition like in a dictionary, you can't get a mark. So if you said approximately means around, about, or not exactly, then that is wrong. You have to say there were approximately 10 sweets in the bottle that were on the desk, with the full stops, capital letters. If all your punctuation's good and you used it correctly, you can get 2 out of 2 for each of those, which totals to 6. Now for punctuation, this is how you're going to mark. Everywhere there's a correction, you're going to give a tick, and then you're going to go on to the next one, and you're going to check, and you're going to give a tick to each of those corrections. And now anywhere where there's a correction that's wrong, so for example, just say you made capital M for that, then you're going to minus a half. Let's say you're going to minus 1. So you give a tick for all the right ones and a minus 1 for all the wrong ones. If you're getting lots and lots and lots of minus 1s, just come speak to me so we can correct it, because you shouldn't you don't want to get negative marks. Again, so the same for this one. You're going to tick the inverted commas. You had to have both to get your 1 mark, or it's 0. I is 1 mark. That's a mark. That's a mark, and that's a mark. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out of 5. Now, what I very often see people doing, PS, by the way, is in a question like this number 1, where do you go to school? Because it's obviously someone speaking, they'll put in inverted commas. Even though it could be someone speaking, you're not going to put in inverted commas, except in this case, because there's someone saying it. So if you don't have someone saying it or asking it or telling it, you do not put these in. Very important. I see that mistake a very lot. In the test, I'm going to really take off marks for that. So the same with this one. Your mark is the capital, the apostrophe, the apostrophe, the full stop, that's your 4 ticks. Capital apostrophe full stop. So now here you're going to look, so just say you're going to check what you got. So for this one you got 2, for this one say you got 6 minus 1, so that's 5, so you're going to add these up. 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 5 is 12, plus 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19, and then you just say you had a minus 1, then that would become 18. But it's out of 10, so you have to divide it by 2. 18 divided by 2 is 9, so there's 9 out of 10. That's your big mark that you circle for when you go add everything up. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go through the test, and each section was out of, oh wait, I made a mistake. That 9 is only for the punctuation, and then the total mark is for this big section. So you'll take your mark together from punctuation and from spelling and get a mark out of 30. So say for spelling you got 15, for punctuation you got 9, that means you got 24 out of 30, and that's your mark you add up. Not this one, ignore what I said there. So then you're going to go do all your circled marks. So each section is out of something, and you're going to add all of those up. Don't go counting negatives or something. So it'll be 24 plus 10 plus 3, whatever it is, and that's going to total to a mark out of 105. So now remember what you're going to do before you come get test 3, if you're ready for that, is you're going to go to this link, this bit.ly link. You're going to get the form, you're going to fill in your answers, you're going to say this is test 2, you're going to put in what you got. Just from some people were asking this, if you get half a mark, you would just put in 1,5. That's the same as 1.5, 5, or 3.5. So you're going to go fill in the form and submit so that I can see your marks so that you can go on to test 3.